as I say, we haven't slept, stayed up all night after the virtual party, especially the gin o'clock session with Lisa Tricky. Fabulous session. And of course, the drinks afterwards. We started with Dorset Conker. We went through to Fordington Gert Lush. We can celebrate a bit of Dorset's gin heritage during our digital week as well. So let's look back over yesterday, shall we, Aidan? Tell us about some of your highlights.
Yeah, some of the highlights. I gave a plug yesterday, for a session with a guy called John Sloper from Help and Kindness, and the feedback was that was really good. So John had set up a virtual community, or used technology to bring communities together in Dorset during lockdown. Gave sort of an example of a story from a family member that had phoned from abroad, who was isolated abroad, wanting to arrange a local delivery of flowers, and using the technology and the community, they were able to deliver those flowers. And it's just, heartwarming stories of making a difference using technology. It was interesting that the tiger who came to tea was quite a hit. So for this particular session, Sam Villis led us a read through of the book, the famous book Tiger Came for Tea, but using that book as a framework to tell a story, and then got attendees to tell their own story. Using the exposition at the start, talking about the crisis point of the tiger drinking all daddy's beer. So it seems to have been a real hit. So one to catch up on if you want. And then closer to home, some lots of good feedback on the DICE. So that's the Dorset Intelligence and Insight Service. So that's where all the healthcare providers in Dorset have come together and are using the insight and analytics, all the data. And this is traditionally such a difficult thing, isn't it? Information sharing, data sharing. But it seems that here in Dorset, the healthcare system in particular, are beginning to get a handle on it, and it is bringing some really powerful insights. And in fact, the DICE has been shortlisted for an award at the 2020 Institute of Collaborative Working Awards. So something to be proud of for Dorset there.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So Matt, what's going on in your world?
Well, one of the things I've really enjoyed about this week and being backstage is being able to catch hold of some people as they're sort of going past. And I've just seen Lee Jones from Microsoft, who's coming to the festival today. So let's get Lee over and see if she can come in the camera. Hi, Lee. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. You can see I've been glamping today, so this is my wonderful tent and environment that I have. That's
amazing what you can do with a pop-up tent these days, isn't it? It's absolutely fantastic. So, Lee, you're the Microsoft's digital skills lead for the public sector. What does that involve?
So basically, I work across the whole of the UK, helping our public-private sector organisations to look at what skills it is that they need within their organisations to be successful, and then also as well, how do we help communities get the digital skills that they need to take on the world of work as technology becomes even more and more important.
Brilliant. So I suspect prior to us being in a virtual world, you were in a camper van all the time, travelling up and down the country, you see, to see all those communities. That would have been a great idea, wouldn't it?
One of the great things, actually, is that the past 2 weeks, I've presented all over the country, and the amount of mileage that I actually have saved just being in my room has been phenomenal.
Absolutely. So, yes. I think that's one of the big takeaways for us in terms of the learning there. So earlier this week, Microsoft announced their On 2021 campaign. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so on Tuesday, we announced our Microsoft Get On 21 campaign, and it's specifically focused on how do we help people in the UK to build careers in technology. So over the next 5 years, we're looking at helping 1.5 million people to look at the skills that they need, and then also as well looking at 300,000, connecting 300,000 people into tech job opportunities. So there's a huge focus on how can we as an organisation really support the economic growth and getting people back into the world of work where there are technology jobs that are growing. And it's about collaboration as well across public private sector. So we're working with big companies like Unilever, KPMG, also Department for Work and Pensions, as well as lots of different organisations. So.
Brilliant. Well, that'll be really, really important, certainly to our local economy in Dorset as we come out of the hopefully the other side of this pandemic in time and rebuilding that economy. Really good. So tell me, Lee, what do you think is the most important thing businesses need to think about in order to be successful in the future, whatever that future is going to look like? What do we think the future is going to look like for businesses?
So I think one of the things actually, Matt, is that nobody really realizes what the future has to hold, and I think 2020 is one of the it's kind of given us that reality check, really, in regards to the fact that anything can happen. So I think from a business perspective, as we move into the future, I think there's two things that businesses need to really focus on. One is actually resilience. How to make sure that they are looking at coming back in a better, stronger way. It's not a case of looking at, going back to the old normal. It's what does the new normal look like and how can we be successful in the future? And then also as well, it's around agility. How can you make sure that you have that flexibility to do things in a new way? And again, the way in which we think about that from a Microsoft perspective is actually about the culture of the organization and the talent in the organization, and that's where the digital skills piece is going to be more and more essential. So as you bring people into an organization, or as you develop people within that organization, making sure that you've got a culture of continued lifelong learning, and making sure that you're investing in your people and creating an environment where they want to stay and they want to grow.
I think that's a really important theme that's come throughout the week, actually, that actually, although digital feels like it's about technology, fundamentally it's about the people. It's about the people and how they use it. It's about the people and how they can benefit from the skills and the digital sort of applications that come with it. That's really, really good. So, Lee, what's it like working for Microsoft at the moment, particularly in a pandemic? Do you spend your whole day on Zoom or Teams? Sorry, Teams. I meant Teams.
Yeah. So to be fair, Matt, I spend my whole day across multiple platforms, right. Speaking to wonderful people like yourselves. But yeah, I mean, it's been challenging. Microsoft has been really supportive as an organization, enabling us to work from home and do what it is that we need. But it's difficult. I've got 2 young children that managing everyone being off at one time and still working is difficult. And again, I tend to, in the past, I'd have travelled a lot, so I'd have had that downtime, that commute where I could actually think about, what are the priorities for the day, what do I need to focus on? Whereas now, up at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm on the Teams call now, having this conversation. So I think it's important to really kind of consider that work-life balance piece. And look at the well-being. There's a lot of issues around, kind of mental health and how being constantly online and constantly connected can be negative for us. So actually last week we had a really great thing. So our manager says, we've got a well-being session today, and he actually gave everybody time off to go and do something for them. So instead of having a 3-hour presentation or whatever it was, we got to go and do running, or we got to go and walk our dogs and things like that. So I think that's where the culture thing comes back into it. But there's also some great tools in the technology. Being able to kind of like use Cortana to set focus time and automatically kind of build it into your day. I think it's realizing that this is the new world in which we live in, and we have to be able to have that balance, because otherwise we won't be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's finding those things that we did in the real world and how we then do them in the virtual world. So how do we have those corridor conversations? How do we have those chats in the kitchens, which were not always about work? Sometimes they're about welfare. They're about caring for colleagues. And I think those are really, really important. And and I think that's really fascinating. Aidan, I could see you.
I can't wait. It's one of those great. It's one of those great paradoxes, isn't it? A paradox of COVID, that we tell ourselves that we're working from home. It's much more flexible now, more flexible and agile. And I think the reality is, or to me, and it sounds the same to you, Lee, that actually I'm chained to my desk more than ever, and less flexible. And there's only one person that can really do something about that, and that's me. But I've got to somehow overcome that. So I suppose I've taken some comfort to hear that Microsoft is struggling with this as much as we are.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I find, so obviously you sat in front of your device for the majority of the day, so making sure that I set specific times for lunch, so I'll block out the lunch so that I can have that and I can just kind of like switch off. But also as well, a lot of the time what I will do is I will either if I'm going through reports and things like that, I'll have them read aloud. So I'll use the immersive reader to read them aloud for me, and I'll walk around the room, or I will use the dictate in a lot of products. So that
like that.
Yes, I use dictate so that I can then again walk around the room and really think and get that collaboration element.
Oh, that's what.
One of the camper vans is backfiring or something
It
like
might be
that.
the guy coming to drain the toilets, actually.
Yeah, I think yes. I think he's just put up outside my house, so we'll quieten that off. But it's really interesting, fascinating to talk to you, Lee. Really, really helpful. Some top tips there, and I hope your session goes really well today. So thanks for joining us in the camper vans, and I'm going to hand over to.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lee. Thanks for getting on with us. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Aidan, I'm gonna hand over to you because I tell you what, that's a lot of emptying going on out there. So I'm just going to mute my mic while you talk us through what's going on today.
Yeah, sure thing, Matt. Yeah, so the forward look for today, we've got 21 sessions today, and I've got to say that the organising team have pulled out all the stops. There's something here for everyone. So we've got some big name speakers. We've got speakers from Amazon Web Services, 3 speakers from Microsoft, including Lee, we just heard from there. PA Consulting are doing a slot, DCMS, BT. So big name, prominent national companies there, and as well as a number of local speakers. I think there's a few things we're watching out for, a few themes really, Matt. So there's one about care. There's a theme about care, which is something that's really important to us in Dorset in particular, given the demographics. So a session at 9 o'clock about robotics in care, how robotic technology can transform social care delivery. So that's a joint session between PA Consulting and Brian Hole from Dorset Council. And then similarly at 12:30, a session about using technology as a platform for independent living. So how can you carry on living at home using technology? Now, second theme that's caught my eye, I think, is the very much what Lee was just talking about, the theme of the workplace of the future and the world of work. So Lee's session is at 1 o'clock. That's skills for the future world of work. At 2 o'clock, we've got Workplace of the Future, which is a BT-led presentation. And then at 4 o'clock, themes that Lee was just talking about, positive workplace mental health, practical workshop to inspire healthier, more sustainable workplace cultures.
Brilliant.
So that sounds good. And then a final bit, just a quick plug for the younger generation, sort of, and well, no, I've got that wrong. A quick plug about education and learning, because we all need to be learning all the time, I think. So at 2 o'clock, we've got a session about apprentices of the round table. That's at 2 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, a session led by Gary Spracklin, who's a head teacher at a school here in Dorchester. Death of Education, the birth of the learning revolution. So, so Matt, all in all, a busy day.
Yeah,
so it's looking good, isn't it? So
fantastic. Yeah. So I know a little bit about Gary. That'll be a fantastic session at 4 o'clock from Gary Spracklin, but also Dr. Nicola Millard as well. So Dr. Nicola used to be called BT's futurologist. But I'm sure she might allude to that in her conversation, or she might not. She's tried to move away from that title, but she's a great speaker. So there's some fantastic topics in there to cover through today. Really good.
Matt, I'll give a quick reminder to those that are watching that they're all these sessions are available on catch up as well. So great if you get there live, you can be interactive, but they're all available pre-recorded or sort of recorded on YouTube afterwards. So good stuff. Yeah. Good stuff.
Brilliant.
Now, I think I'm conscious of time, that I think we ought to wrap it up there if we could. But it's been a big, massive event. So a few thank yous, Matt.
Well, do you know, there's more than just a few thank yous, and I'm sure that we might inadvertently missed somebody in all this, but it would be wrong of us both, Aidan, not to thank Lisa Trickey and Sam McLaren, Katrina Fountain, Penny Siddle, Pete Bartlett, Steve Olwyn, Neil Lawrence, John Stubbs, Brian Hole, Sarah Dackham, and Delia Carr.
All these, the organisers have done a tremendous job, and then there's a whole host of speakers who have given up their time and efforts for free to support the festival, to create this community. You know, we said at the beginning, it feels like there's something happening here in Dorset around digital, and my goodness, doesn't it feel like that? Now, look, we must thank, in particular, Simon Hedges, who's our producer.
He's got his head in his hands right now.
He's our producer, helping us with the technology this morning and over the last few days. You know what? COVID and working from home has brought out talents in people that perhaps they didn't know they had. And Simon is a tremendous example of that. He's kept calm throughout. So really, really good.
It's brilliant, brilliant. Aidan, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us in our virtual camper vans this week. We've had a lot of fun doing it. Hope you've gained a lot from the festival. As Aidan's just said, they're all on record. So if you've missed a few sessions, you can dip in and out of those. So enjoy your final day of the festival. Have safe travels home. Won't take you long. And enjoy washing all the camping kit out. It'll be a lot easier. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.
So you burnt the bacon yesterday, Aidan.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Are you gonna do a better job with the eggs?
Yeah, well, how do you have yours? Because I can do all right at hard-boiled eggs, but beyond that, it gets a bit complicated.
You can't have a hard-boiled egg in a bath. It's gonna have to be a fried egg in a bath.
Maybe when I turn it over, it usually breaks the yolk. That's not good.
See, just lift the pan a little bit, and you just spoon a bit of the oil over the top, and you have to turn it over. And I will have ketchup with it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to use that to obscure the damaged egg.
Well, there we go. It'll be a lot easier when we're back in our houses.
Yeah, too right. Right, Matt, I've got to go. I'm going to go.
Brilliant.
Yeah. See you
Right.
soon.
Have a shower. Take care.